This is Democracy Here. My name is Mary Malmros. Today I have with me Sheila Gilmour, newly elected from Precinct 6 to the Greenfield Town Council, and Don Alexander, newly elected to the Greenfield School Board, both endorsed by Franklin County, continuing the political revolution.
Come all you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? My mother is a feminist and she taught me to see. Until we all have justice, not one of us is free. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Title VII don't protect me from the pay inequality. I work for the man each day, but the man don't work for me. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on?
Okay, so welcome, Sheila, and welcome, Don. And I'd like to start off with a few background questions about your experience in running. And first, your decision to run. Now, we know that in 2016, we saw a real resurgence in ordinary people participating in the political process. And one of the things that we were told that people should do if they wanted to help to restore our democracy was to run for office. So I want you to tell me, because I've never even thought about running for office, what inspired you? Why did you want to run for office? Sheila, let me start with you.
Sure. I was actually interested in running for office before. I left the military in 2011, and I moved out here to the Pioneer Valley, and I was working on my master's degree in public policy at UMass Amherst. While I was working on my degree, we had a municipal election, and I was a little bit disappointed because I didn't feel like there were enough names on the ballot. There were some races that were completely uncontested, and that just didn't necessarily feel democratic to me. At the time, I was in school, and I was working with my union and doing other things, but I decided I wanted to run in the future. And then after, the November election, it felt like it was time. I was done with school. My kids are a little bit older now, and they don't need as much supervision. My husband was able to help out with dinner, and I had time to run a campaign.
So practical reasons and...
It all lined up.
It all lined up. Understood. And Don, how about you? Had you ever run before for anything?
Honestly, I really am not that political minded. Never run for office, but probably the most political I've ever been was ranting in my kitchen, and my wife telling me yes, but I had strong opinions about what was going on, but I just never really reacted on it. And kind of like Sheila's journey is, I saw that there were a lot of vacancies, unchallenged positions on the school committee, and with my education background, I am very passionate about learning and education. And so when I saw that not a big turnout of candidates, I decided to throw my name in the hat out of the, just give it a try. And that's how I got here.
That's great. So both of you sought out the endorsement of FCCPR in your campaigns. Why did you make that decision? Why did you decide to approach FCCPR?
Well, as I just said a minute ago, I was never really political. I've never been officially a member of any political party. And personally, I feel myself more towards being a socialist in my perspective when I look at community and policy and stuff around in our town here. So not being a member of any party, I really didn't actively seek out any endorsements at the beginning of the campaign. Actually, it was Sheila, when I saw that she was becoming close with the CPR, and then when I started meeting some of the members, I started feeling more relaxed and at home. People that shared my viewpoints on a lot of the topics around town.
I see.
So it just kind of felt like you just kind of found your team,
That's great. So Sheila, you were the one that then broke the ice with CPR. How did that come about?
I was actually invited to a CPR meeting by Mary Ellen Calderwood. I told you I worked pretty actively with my union.
Sure.
And she and I were in the same local. We were with University Staff Association. She left to become an organizer with MTA, and I filled her position when she left. So we were sort of like ships passing in the night, and I found out that she was my neighbor, and she told me about this group, so I decided I was going to check out the General Assembly, and I brought my husband with me, and we went, and it was really a lot more than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be people kind of lamenting the results, but it wasn't. It was people talking about, okay, we learned our lesson, and now what do we do next?
Right,
and I
right.
just, that was something I wanted to be a part of.
And you found out about the endorsement process, or that there was an endorsement process at that meeting or elsewhere?
It was a little bit later, I think, because we only have the General Assembly once every couple of months.
Right.
I think it was actually at the second meeting that I found out about it. And my husband sort of elbowed me like, hey, you should talk to them because you're running.
Right.
So that's what I did.
And how did that partnership work out for you?
What do you mean?
Working with CPR in the process of getting elected, was that helpful?
Yeah, so FCCPR was the first group to endorse me, so it was a big boost for morale, if nothing else. And I remember I went out with Dave Cohen, and we got a drink at the People's Pint, and we talked about what town council should look like. He used to be on town council for a little while.
I see.
And he talked to me about some of the roadblocks, and it was a good conversation. And then after that, I think other people started paying attention to my campaign. CPR talked about me a little bit, so my name got out there, and other people in town took notice.
And you got some momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Don, you found out about the endorsement process through Sheila?
Well, Sheila was very strong in influencing me on wanting to be more open to listening, but it was actually Dave and Doug Selwyn and a couple others that did the initial reach out.
I see.
And they invited me to come down and just sit down and just have a discussion. And we didn't stay just with one topic. And that's when I actually learned about the strengths of the organization. And so that's how I went through the process a little bit there. But I think the most important thing that came from that first initial meeting for me is I found people that were bringing their true strengths, their career strengths, what they've done with their life.
I see.
They're bringing their talents and strengths, and they're bringing their creative ideas to the table. And they're actually rolling their sleeves up. And I think that fact alone convinced me that that's where I need to be.
It was a good partnership for you then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of that partnership, not just the nuts and bolts, but also the inspiration, did you find that any of the task forces or the work of the organization dovetailed with what you want to do in your new positions? Doug?
Yeah, with my interest in working for the students and the kids in our city, other areas like renewable energy, questioning the broadband, Comcast's monopoly over the area here.
So now where's the intersection with that specifically and education? How does that impact the quality of education, the availability of broadband?
Well, in our area here, not all students have access to the internet. And a
That's
lot of
certainly true.
homework is done over it. The schools have a program called Power Schools where parents go online and they can communicate directly with the teacher. They can pay their cafeteria bill online.
I see.
And without that connectivity, these students are kind of isolated.
I see.
And even the MCAS tests, some of the standardized testing that the kids have to do, if they don't have internet or they're not getting a lot of access on a computer, they have to take a high stakes test on a computer now. And
yeah.
I think that's just kind of unfair. They're not ready. They're not prepared.
They're not prepared for that environment. Yeah. Sheila, how about you in terms of the work of CPR? How does that work with your work that you see going forward on the town council?
That's interesting because I think that most of the work I do with CPR is separate from my work on city council, but it's, something that I care a lot about as a person, and I think that you bring your personality with you anywhere. So I'm on the labor task force, and I'm never going to be involved in any of the union discussions with the town employees or anything like that. So there isn't a direct link. But I also feel like my work with CPR, even if it is separate from my work with City Council, they're things that are important for Franklin County, you know, and for Greenfield.
Right, right. What has it been like so far? I mean, you both just kind of recently been inaugurated. And what's the experience been like to start with?
So far, there's a lot of reading. So I just received the first chairs packet, and it was 79 pages long. I was not expecting that. I'm not one of the chairs, so I don't have to attend this meeting, but I need to read this and I need to know what's going on. So I realized that this is a lot like being in grad school again, and I'm going to have to sit there and read through different laws and different proposals and then do my own research and figure out not just how I feel about it, but what's going to be right for Greenfield.
Right, right, right. What sort of proposals are you seeing?
There are some basic nuts and bolts issues. There's a building that needs to be demolished over on Main Street. Right now, the parking garage has been halted because there was they found a livery stable under the ground while they were digging, and so we have to find some more money for that. And these are things that you have to think, you know, we don't want to halt the project right in the middle. We have to come up with this money. We have some money that we can leverage, so now we just have to figure out the best way to use it.
Right, right. And how about the school committee? What's been happening on the school committee?
Well, school committee, I've been named chair of 2 subcommittees, one for policy and program and the other one for personnel and negotiations. So my first month, this past month, I think I've already had 5 meetings. Thankfully, they were not more than an hour apiece. But right now, the school committee, we're going headfirst into the budget process. Right now, we're going line by line. We're looking at positions that we need to get added in and making sure that we present a fair, balanced budget, but we still meet the needs that we need to run the district. So it's been a lot of money talk here this past month.
Now, looking forward and looking beyond Franklin County and beyond Greenfield, obviously these kind of nuts and bolts, bread and butter issues that you're both dealing with are not just controlled at the local level, but they're also influenced by educational priorities or policy priorities at the state level, at the federal level. Just blue skying, what can we as ordinary citizens do to see that our local priorities are reflected at the state or the national level?
I think that CPR has already done some work with that. We just had a gubernatorial forum where we had the 3 Democratic candidates for governor come and speak to, you know, anybody in Franklin County who wanted to come. It was freezing that day. I think it was negative 20 or it was in the negative teens, and we still had, what was it, 200 people came out to that forum. And they knew our issues. They talked to us about rail, they talked to us about broadband, town-owned internet, and they talked about moving internet out to the western parts of Franklin County and rural issues. We didn't ask any specific questions about women's issues, but they did bring that up. And I think that they know that they have to pay attention to us. And I think that that happening right after we just had this big shift in our city government, I think that they recognize that we need to have a seat at the table and they need to pay attention to us and our constituents.
Okay. What do you think about on the school committee? How does the school committee and educational priorities bubble up?
Well, with the educational priorities, it's always been a goal is we have to do it better than we've ever done it before.
Sure.
With the issue of charter schools, with the state of the federal level of education, Department of Education down in Washington, I'm seeing some rough times ahead. But if we, like I said, we have to pull it together. We have to do it a little bit better than we did it last year. And we have to inspire our students to step up and let their voices be heard. But I guess one phrase I mentioned earlier, and I'll try not to use the profane word, but the way we got to look at school and education here is we got to, either lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way.
Right.
And we got to be brave and move forward in doing the things that are responsible to bringing up our students.
Now, you talked about at the national level and some things to be concerned about. Is that strictly a matter of money, of less money coming down to the local level, less of our taxes coming back? Or is this educational priorities from, say, the DeVos Department of Education?
Well, it was very clear that Secretary DeVos, her priority is to promote charter schools. And reading the educational professional journals about the trends and stuff that's going on, she's already been trying to move grant money funding away from public schools.
So that's directly affecting your funding?
That's going to hit the state, and then of course if the state's not getting it, then we're obviously not going to be getting it as well. So
is that a done deal?
No. The only way we're going to be able to fight it is if we remain very vocal about it.
I see.
Write-in campaigns to your local representatives, letting the governor know very clearly that we here in Franklin County will not tolerate shortchanging our education.
Didn't we do that, though, with Prop 2?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't think that that message is going to stay there?
I don't have the faith that the message will stay up there because priorities shift and change all the time. We're human beings, and we never feel the same way, 2 minutes in a row. And so the thing of it is, we have to be consistent in our message. We have to be always vigilant in looking at what's going on in the legislative agendas and the budgets and stuff like that. And the main thing of it is we have to stay on message, and we have to be consistent in our resolution of keeping the funding coming.
Right, right. Now, because it is a question of funding, I have to say, I have had discussions with parents of charter school children, and they always feel a little bit conflicted because they do understand when we talk about the need to finance public education and to focus on public education, but at the same time, they're trying to do what's best for their kids. So how, in terms of our town budget and priorities, and in terms of the school budget and priorities, how do we bring those people in to get them to buy into the public education instead of focusing on trying to get their kid into a charter school slot? How do we do that?
Well, I think that it helps when educators are able to talk to parents. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a member of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, and I'm, education support, and I work in higher education. But I still have a lot of contact with a lot of those union activists, and you have to talk to the parents. It is tempting to try and send your kid to the best school that you can send them to.
Right.
I have a son who is very, very interested in music, and he would like to go to PVPA, but Greenfield High School has a really, really good music program. They just got a brand new marimba, and they do a lot of fundraising. So I don't want to shortchange my own child, but also these individual decisions affect the entire community. And if you're going to make a selfish decision that only benefits you or your child, you have a neighbor and your neighbor's child who isn't going to be that lucky. So I think people just need to sort of keep an eye on the big picture. I think having MTA coming out and talking about these issues and keeping it at the forefront for educators, I think is helpful.
Sure, yeah.
I think Sheila just kind of tipped on it a little bit for me is the one thing we always probably got to remember, and that what makes this area strong is we also got to remember that two things, that those students at the charter school and those parents, those are our friends, those are our neighbors. And so we got to remember
we can't demonize them.
Right. And so that's one thing that I personally really don't like a whole lot is how the polarization that seems to be coming from above us and being impressed upon us, right? And oh shoot, I just had another thought, and it just kind of walked right off of the cheese for me.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, certainly with privatization of education and all of that, and it does become kind of a crabs in a bucket scenario, as it were, where you've got people that are fighting for a few resources, So that's that's definitely an example of a lot of policy, I would say. Now, looking ahead, this is now 2018, and we've all been told that that's going to be a huge year politically, especially for us progressives. How do we keep the wave going forward, locally and beyond? How do we keep this momentum toward ordinary people being involved with politics, being engaged with politics, and being willing to run for office? What would you personally say to somebody that either approached you saying, is this something I should do? Or how would you approach somebody that you thought would be a good candidate? Don?
Well, the way I look at it is and I shared this earlier when we were just chatting a little bit ago, is my viewpoint is that majority of the governing that affects everyday life for all of us is at the local level. Mm-hmm. And seeing empty names on a ballot is just not right. And for town council, for school committee, any public office here locally, it really should be a dogfight. You should have several people wanting to put their name in the hat, or mm-hmm. throw their name in the hat and run for that seat.
Sure.
And well, I guess the charge for me and Sheila is to kind of reflect on the positive things that you can do mm-hmm. with the responsibility we've been given. Mm-hmm. And we should be encouraging people. And if you see someone who's very, very verbal and outgoing about a certain issue, mm-hmm. encourage them to start off going to the town council meeting and start going to the school committee meetings. And then at the beginning of each meeting, you have public comment. Get up and speak your mind. And then once you start speaking your mind, then you're going to want, then hopefully they're going to want to, join in on the process. Mm-hmm. But by being leaders and examples, I think hopefully that might help encourage more people to do this.
So become familiar with the process, mm-hmm. see what the work is like, mm-hmm. and then maybe it becomes a little less scary and more something that you really feel called to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you think? How do you get somebody to do this?
It depends. I think that people who don't necessarily feel called to do it, I don't feel like we should harass them or pressure them into doing it, because we don't want people resigning in the middle. Right. But I would say that there's a place for everybody, and it doesn't have to be at the table, but you should be calling your school committee. You should be calling your town councilors. If you don't feel like running, you can still come to public comment. You can still write letters. And I think that that, in a way, is more valuable. I know my experience working with my union. I'm mm-hmm. an elected leader there, and I've been doing it for several years now. Mm-hmm. And you get so caught up in rules of procedure and budgets and these big level decisions that you really need people to remind you of what life is like
right.
at the front lines. And
so
I don't want to say
you need that public engagement. You need
right.
that public engagement to help you do your job.
Right, because when we're sitting there arguing over, budgets, we were talking about school budgets earlier, mm-hmm. if we're not getting that money from the state and from the federal government, right. it's coming out of our local taxes. Mm-hmm. And if we're sitting there just looking at numbers on a sheet of paper, you start to forget about the parents who have kids in school.
Right.
Or the older people in town who, mm-hmm. Maybe are not as concerned about the school. And you have to balance all those interests, and you have to get people out to public comment and represent themselves. Otherwise, you've got one loud group who's going to sort of run everybody else over.
Right, right. And then, as concerns the pragmatic aspect of running for office, how can somebody assess if this is something that they can really do? I'm just thinking about nuts and bolts and who gets dinner on the table and how many hours you have in the day. What would be your calculus for how to tell if that's something you can actually do?
Well, I think you have to have a lot of free time. Like I said, there's a lot of reading, right? And there are a lot of meetings. Uh-huh. I am at a point now where Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I have a meeting every single week, right. unless there's a fifth week in the month. So, and it's something you have to be prepared for, and you can't take these things lightly. You have to be on time. You have to be able to stay late.
Right.
Luckily, I have not been caught at a town council meeting until midnight yet, but I know that when they were debating safe cities, that meeting went really long.
It went almost to midnight. Yeah.
Right, and a lot of people have to wake up and go to their 9-to-5 job the next day. Right. So you have to be prepared for that.
Right.
But I also wouldn't want to scare people off from it either, because I think that, it's part of our civic duty is to take care of where we live, to take care of our town, and to take care of the people.
Right, right. So where do you see it going? If you're just getting started, I know that this is really premature, but how long do you see yourself doing this?
At this point in time, well, 2 days ago, I probably would have said 20 more minutes because it was a really, really rough meeting. And it was a lot of information to take in, and it's a lot of new knowledge that you have to study up on.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with Sheila. It's like going back to grad school again. You've got a 50-page thesis to write.
Sure.
But I can actually see myself continuing doing this, if not just this, but being active in the public, because you get to hear people. The other day in my office, I had somebody's grandfather come in and bring up a point about one of the schools. And he just wanted to ask a question. And I started thinking, and sure enough, it's something we probably should, make sure everything went okay with it. So I like the engagement, but when you're finding people to come out, support them, okay? A couple of months ago, we had a gentleman come up and make public comments, and the minimum we should do is give him response back. He asked several questions, and for the last 2 months, I've been doing that homework, trying to come up with the real answers to his questions. So treating our community members, people that actually will come to the table, giving them the respect and giving them the answer instead of just blowing them off. You give them the time and you let them be heard, but you also give them the answers that they're looking for. It may take a while, but doing it with respect, but.
Yeah, okay. So what's happening next? What's the exciting thing that's going to happen in Greenfield in 2018?
The exciting thing in Greenfield? It's hard to say. There are a lot of wheels in motion right now. There are a lot of, our city council has 13 members, and all 13 members have their own issues.
And they're all very busy.
Yes. But we also have our own issues, and some of these people have been on town council for a long time already, and they have things that are in the works. I know President Rito was talking about bringing back the Safe City ordinance. I think that that's going to be another big, big issue in Greenfield.
Sure.
It's going to bring out a lot of stakeholders.
I see, okay. But we have that engagement, so that's good. So we're going to end it there. And thank you all for watching. And we'll be back soon with another episode of Democracy Here.
Not one of us is free. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Title VII don't protect me from the pay inequality. I work for the man each day, but the man don't work for me. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? I don't need those corporations sucking on my tit. A little socialism don't scare me one bit. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Come all you northern liberals, taking Klansmen out to dine. The time has come to choose a side and join the picket line. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? My father was a carpenter, now he's with the air and sun. But he'll be with his fellow workers till the battle's won. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? They say in Milwaukee, cleansed by Great Lake water, you'll either be a Union man or a thug for Skywalker. Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side are you on? which side are you on? Which side are you on, my sisters? Which side